Comedians from the World Series of Comedy, Part 4. That's what's coming up on The Art of Bombing, episode 171.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome back to The Art of Bombing. Dan Bublis Jr. here with you with another episode of The Art of Bombing from the World Series of Comedy. Today, my guest is Holly Johnston. She's a comedian from Hopedale, Massachusetts. Before we get to the conversation, I just want to warn everybody that we actually had to record twice, because the first recording that I did with her, I accidentally recorded over it because I'm a dummy sometimes. So just wanted to give you a little pre-warning about that. Also, going forward through the rest of this week, the stand-up soundbite section will no longer be doing that this week because I'm having some technical issues with the program that I use to convert videos and audio, and I don't have the time to try to figure out what's going on with it. I've got too many episodes to release, so I will be posting links to their videos in the show notes, so if you want to check out all the rest of these comics that I'll be doing episodes with, be sure to do that. If you haven't done, you know what to do. You gotta subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star rating, maybe a nice review. You can do that on most platforms, wherever you can rate podcasts. I guess it's Apple Music is the big one. And we've got new merch out there, so go visit us at artofbombingpod.com. Here is my conversation with Holly Johnston. Enjoy. We are now recording from the World Series of Comedy again. I like to admit my faults. After all, this podcast is about failure and bombing, and I bombed at our recording that we did yesterday in the sense that I accidentally recorded over the recording that we did, but here we are again. How have you been enjoying the festival?
I've been having a good time. I really enjoy the seminars. Have just been so informative. Like I've just been taking notes like crazy on them because like there's so many things where I just never thought of to do that are so simple that I'm just like I'm so glad I'm hearing someone say this because now like I'm gonna look way better without like that much more effort.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I didn't go to the first seminar today. But then I almost wasn't going to go to that second one. I was just walking by, and I was like, you know what? I was actually going to come back to my room and try to take a nap. And I was like, you know what? I'm already walking around. I'm out here. I'll go check it out for a little bit. If it seems redundant or, not interesting, I'll sneak out and go back to my room. And as soon as I saw they were doing stuff on TikTok, and I was like, oh, you got me.
Yeah.
And then, and then DJ had a lot of great information. It was very informative.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have TikTok?
I do have TikTok. Yeah, I do. Another great comic, Dusty Sleigh. He's a comic based out of Nashville. He did this podcast, and we talked a little bit about it because he blew up on TikTok. Mm-hmm. He's been on Fallon, and he's did Lights Out with David Spade and some other TV stuff or whatever. But he said that he got his biggest social media following from TikTok.
Yeah.
He just started posting. And he, unlike what they were talking about at the seminar where, they're talking about doing other content and not really doing a whole lot of your stand-up stuff to more build a following. Well, he just primarily does stand-up clips. That's all he's putting on there. He's not doing silly videos or trying to keep up with trends or any of that stuff. He's just keeping it simple. And he blew up. He got hundreds of thousands of followers. And all his videos always get tons of likes and interactions.
Yeah, it's a really good way to get a massive following and get a lot of attention towards your content really fast.
Yep.
There was an article that just came out recently called Comedians You Should Know About. I think Vulture put it out.
Yep.
And half of the comics in their little intro said they got their fame from their TikTok videos.
Yep, and social media. Yep.
Yeah, it was so much of it was virtual that I was really surprised by like how fast they rose, and now they're doing like legit shows and everything where it's just like they started out just making videos.
Yep. Yeah, it's you really have to be on top of it though, like he was talking about, I think, with like keeping up with trends and being consistent and stuff, because also a lot of it is, you know, trying to beat the algorithm. Sometimes it's just luck, you know. I have a video that I put on there that has over 80,000 views and like
That's awesome.
10,000 likes, and then every other video, you know, I think the next one might have 1,200 views, and everything else is like under 200. So it's like not very many compared to that one. Didn't really do a lot for following. Like I went from, you know, maybe, well, I didn't have very many followers, but I only jumped up to like 500 and some. So it didn't like get a big following out of it. But I don't know. It's all luck. Because like I said, I've been doing different experiments with it because I'm studying marketing. I'm about to get my associates with that. So
nice.
I've been playing around with that and experimenting with reels and everything. So what I'm finding is it's just luck.
Yeah, it's you know, I actually have a bombing experience on TikTok. I released a TikTok over like it was like the spring or summer, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna get on board with this. But I did it without hashtags. I didn't use any of the filters. Like, actually, no, I think I did use a filter. But I made this little bit, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be hilarious. This is gonna blow up. I think I got maybe 16 views, maybe 2 likes. It was such a tragedy that I literally just abandoned the app for the rest of the...
You're like, I'm done with this.
But
nobody liked... Well, and that's the thing about it, too. Like, you can put in a lot of work to a video on there and not really get any views or likes or interaction or anything. And then some girl just smiles for a second and gets hundreds of thousands of likes.
Yeah.
And that's it. Just like, they're smiling. I'm just like... I don't get it.
I've scrolled through the app, like what I said during the seminar today, my question about the theft of jokes, because I would scroll through and be like, oh my God, this guy's hilarious. And then I would follow him. And then I would find another kid that did the exact same joke.
Did you know that it's not, a lot of times they're lip syncing jokes?
Yeah, I didn't
thing.
Get that. I was like, wow, this guy's really creative, and then I found out it's from like an old
that's
audio.
the thing with TikTok, is that like, you know, you can basically lip sync other people's work on there. So you do, because then it ends up being trends and stuff. Because I've seen bigger comedians that have, you know, TikToks, and they put their stuff on there, and then, you know, I've seen them share on their other social media because, you know, they think it's kind of cool when somebody's doing a lip sync to one of their bits.
Yeah, it's definitely, I like how they brought up the fact that it can actually boost the original creator, because I didn't realize that. I thought like, oh, other people are getting all this unnecessary attention for it, but I think that actually gives a lot of credit to the person who created it.
Because even at the, like, when they do the lip syncing things, there's at the very bottom, it scrolls where the original came from.
Oh,
too.
okay.
So you can see, that's why they were talking about how it can help the person who originally created it, because people can click on that and they can see all the other audio clips, you know, that were used with that or whatever, and then it ultimately bring them back to the person who originally did the video with the audio.
Oh, see,
now,
I didn't know
if
that.
somebody was just straight up doing their own audio of somebody else's joke, then that would be more of the stealing. This is, you know, this is more of just keeping up with what TikTok does, really.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's really what the point is, dancing and lip syncing and all that weird jazz.
Yeah.
So you don't really use TikTok now? Is that?
I want to. After that seminar, I'm like, I gotta create a TikTok. Like, it really motivated me into. I'm really gonna go back to it now and start over and you know, do it the right way, because I think I just have to learn about it. Like, I need to learn how to use all the features of it, because I think just throwing a video on there without really paying attention to the trends and the, the filters and all the stuff that makes a TikTok video is gonna make you less likely to get as much attention as some of these other videos.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. Like I said, I've been trying to figure out. It's driving me nuts because I can't figure it out. It's one of them things. Now, you talked a little bit about bombing on a video with TikTok, but let's talk about bombing in stand-up comedy. You didn't bomb last night.
Thank
right?
you.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking.
I thought you were telling me.
I couldn't watch you. It's funny because I ended up recording over it by accident or whatever. But yesterday we were sworn enemies because we were on the same show. But now the show's over, so we're no longer enemies. So
yeah, and you advanced, and I did not.
Yeah,
Congratulations
now I'm
on
just
that.
the enemy.
No, not at all.
No, but yeah. So how did you feel like your set was last night?
I felt pretty good about it for the most part. Towards the end, I felt that my jokes that I closed with were not that strong, and that made me feel less happy about it by the end. Because in the beginning, I was like, all right, this is going pretty good. And then I sort of plateaued, and I was like, okay. And then I got an ooh. Like, I had one joke, and it usually gets a laugh, but instead I got a ooh.
Oh.
so that kind of threw me off guard and or just like threw me off a little bit. And then the joke that usually works really well did not work. One of my jokes that really didn't work well ended up being a miss. So that was just kind of like, I kind of like had a moment where I had to like be like, do I want to do the next part of this bit? Do I want to abandon it? And like, I stuck through it. It was really hard to see anybody.
It is.
The lights
That's a very dark room.
Yeah, the lights were it was like a fog. Like, I couldn't make out anyone's faces. So usually, like, as part of the joke, I'll, like, pinpoint one person and be like, is it you? Did you do this? And, like, everyone laughs. But, like, I couldn't even, like, make out any faces. So I was just like... well, we're just going to go through the material because
Well, you know what the nice thing is about that? If you kind of have a general idea of where the audience is, you could just look into the audience and point, and somebody's going to assume you're talking to them.
Yeah, I have a specific joke where it has to be a blonde girl or it doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, I didn't know that part of it.
It's okay.
You just said you point to somebody and everybody laughs, so I was like, well, you could just do that into the darkness, but if it's got to be a specific person, well, never mind then.
Yes.
That definitely doesn't work.
Yeah. But I had fun, and I wasn't even expecting to perform here. I was only expecting to do, like, a late show. I wasn't expecting to be in the actual competition. So it was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. And then you got on a late show, too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I got the lottery.
You got the lottery. I saw that when I was watching some of the comics on the show tonight. So that's cool. Get a little extra stage time while you're here, which is always nice.
I'm excited because it's also a later show, so I'm hoping that, like, the crowd will be a little different. Because I feel like the earlier show, like, they're not, I don't know, like, the whole seminar of, like, they're not ready for comedy. That's kind of like how I felt about the crowd last night, personally. Like, it's 6 p.m. Like, they're not ready for comedy.
Yeah, right. They're not liquored up enough. That's for sure. But now let's get into the bombing portion of this with stand-up.
Yes.
Go ahead and tell your story.
Well, I got a good story I told yesterday about the biker heckler. That I was working at this, or I was doing an open mic at a bar. It was in a parking lot because of COVID, so they moved it outside. So, I mean, not only am I getting, like, heckled by motorcycles, but there was also a guy who, in the middle of my set, just shouted, "There's something wrong with this broad!" And it just stopped. Everybody stopped. Everyone heard it, and I just had to, come up with, like, a quick line to say to win the audience back or to get them back focused on me. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to put that on a T-shirt, sir. I'm going to get that on a T-shirt. And then a couple people in the audience goes, yeah, I'll make them. I'll print them. I'll help you sell them. Like, and then I had a whole marketing team by the end of the joke. So I turned it around into something good. And
you better get on that then. Get those T-shirts
Yeah,
created.
right. Get those T-shirts out.
Get that money while you can. Yeah. It's always funny when people, like, just say random stuff, you know, because dealing with hecklers, it's you don't know what you're going to get either. You know, because you don't know if they're... Because sometimes you get these hecklers that will heckle not, like, to be mean but that's just they're more of an audible person.
Yeah.
Like that's their way to react to things is
Yep.
by like speaking or you know, making a sound or something. Which, you know, and then you got to be careful because if you're mean to them, then they'll be mad and then not want to laugh, and then the rest of the you can lose the rest of the audience. But
I've been at shows like, you know, like real like big comedians where they say something and I think the whole audience is going to react to it, and I'm the only one that reacts. They're like, "Oh, who?" I think there was one show where they were like, "Who's living at home?" And I was just like, "Woo!" And I didn't know that no one else was going to do that, so it just singled me out so bad because now
man.
I just look like a heckler. I was like, "Oh, I thought you guys were all going to join in. I thought there was going to be a group thing." It's just me going, "Woo!" Like
everybody's looking at you like, "Hey,
yeah.
I think you need to move out."
Yeah, literally, everyone's just like, "Oh, this girl needs attention in the back here. She's not getting her."
Not getting enough attention.
Yeah.
Is that so? Like when that happened, were you like, where did you go from there? Why do you feel like that was a bomb? I mean, that was more of a heckle.
Yeah, it was definitely more of a heckle than a bomb, but it was just uncomfortable because it's like comedians I highly respect, and I'm like, oh wow, I just heckled their set by accident because I thought.
Well, no, I'm talking about your set where you said you felt like you bombed.
Oh.
What I mean, because that was more of just you got heckled.
Yeah.
What kind of led to why you felt like it was a bomb?
Oh, well, I always bomb at that place. I've
You're like every show at that place I bomb.
I've had very few good shows there. I've just like I was saying yesterday with the there's a lot of cardboard floating in the air because of the fires, and they also have this like vent that just like pours out this like horrible smell. So it just really sets the scene for comedy.
It's not really a good environment for comedy, is what you're saying.
And feel like
it's
I have to
outside.
take a shower.
They got cardboard burning in barrels. Oh, it sounds to me like you're just performing for homeless people.
Yeah, basically close. As close as you can get. Like
without them actually being homeless.
Yeah. And people will people will insult them, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna get stabbed if you make that. And they like think they're being funny. They're like, oh, this white trash out here. I'm like, like, they're your friends.
Better be careful, or you won't be going home.
Yeah, I was just.
It'll be you burning in that barrel.
Yeah, but other bombing. I think I was talking about this yesterday as well. I did a show where we at the beginning of the show they go, look, the health inspectors are coming in, so if they come in you have to pretend you're not doing comedy. You have to sit down and you have to hide the microphone. I'm like, this sets the scene for a great show. All right, let's go from here. So the first guy gets up. Who shows up? The health inspectors. So now he has to hide his microphone. Instead of canceling the show, they ended up just having us perform without microphones. Now we're in an Irish bar. Everybody, there was also a few like old Irish songs that went on before the comedy show. So these guys are loud. They're singing, they're chanting, they're having a good time. And I was performing without a microphone, and I was yelling. I was yelling these jokes about roommates and study abroad at these old. Irish men who, probably couldn't relate to much of it. And my dad was there, and he was sitting there laughing at everything on the side. So he was like my hype man because he got like the closest table.
That's funny.
And
I don't remember you talking about this yesterday because I would have remembered health inspectors coming down. Like if the health inspector comes, hide the mic and pretend like you're not performing. Go COVID.
I felt like I was in like an action movie.
That's how
crazy.
It's funny, but it's also sad that that's how desperate comics are to perform.
It's so
where
sad.
We're like, oh, we really shouldn't be performing because it's illegal, so we're gonna do it anyway. But if the health inspector comes, hide that shit.
I actually bonded
like
with
flash mob comedy.
I bonded with the Irishman, too, because he was saying how he couldn't play his guitar, and I was like, they're taking away our art, man. And so I bonded with an old Irishman. I think his name was Mick Stanky. I'm not making that up. That's how he introduced himself.
Mick Stanky.
Or that was his friend. I had a whole crew by the end of the show.
Well, it sounds like in the long run, it ended up working out. Now, when you bomb, the bumming of bombing, that dreadful feeling, how long does that typically last for you?
As I've gotten more and more stage time, I try to go to open mics pretty much every day, every weekday, because I just try to get as much performance time. Because anytime there's a live mic, I'm like, I'm going. Like, as long, obviously I make sure it's safe and everything. But I think when I bomb, I try to, sometimes I'll try to come back with a joke after it that will get a laugh. Like one time one joke bombed, and I just said, that joke's not true. Those aren't even open anymore, because it was, like, during COVID, and then that got a huge laugh. So I, like, sort of, I'll either try to, like, save it. If it's unsavable, I try not to bail. I've been really trying to get better at sticking to it. Like, even if I'm bombing, I just pretend I'm not bombing, or I think about who I'm going to be performing for in the future. Like, actually, right before this this comedy show in Las Vegas, I did a show in Rhode Island outside, and I bombed, and I was bombing, and I was pretending I was performing for the LA Comedy Club crowd, because I'm like, well, I'm going to need to have confidence, and, I'm just going to pretend that these people are them so I can not get out of my set because they're not responding to it the way I want them to.
Well, that's a good way to try to do it. Pretend like I feel like there's a lot of comics that pretend like they're not bombing because they're delusional.
Yeah.
When you bomb, what do you try to do? How do you try to analyze your sets? We talked a little bit yesterday. You're very organized.
Yeah, I force myself to listen to it, and I'll like write it out. I'll write out what didn't work, or I transcribe a lot of my sets, so I'll actually type them out word for word as best I can, and I basically try to figure out like what about it didn't work. And sometimes it's pretty obvious, but when I'm on stage, I'm like, how did that not work? And then I'm like, oh, it's because I sound completely unconfident. Like it's sometimes it's my delivery, or it's my my tone. Other times I just realize that it's not, if it's consistently not working, then I know to take it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's helpful to listen to it, and I try not to get as discouraged when it doesn't work as I used to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you definitely, it's easy to get discouraged in comedy, that's for sure. You were saying, too, that you take notes, like you measure the laughters, and then you kind of take notes and stuff, too, as far as, like, different things.
Yeah, definitely different things at work. And also, like, I try to pay attention to where different places where something works. Like, if it only works in, like, a specific demographic, then I avoid it at other places. But if it works, like, at one place and then it works at a very different audience, I'm like, okay, well, this joke would probably work in a different, state. It's more universal.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That's good, because it's almost like, reading the room, but reading the room before you get to the room, essentially, because, you know which jokes are going to work for certain demographics, so you can go in, read the room, and then not do the jokes that may or may not work in that situation.
Yeah.
Do you have any pre-show rituals or traditions?
As I mentioned yesterday, sometimes I'll try to, like, meditate. I write out a set list every time. Even if I think I don't need it, I always have a set list with me, just to have it. And I just like to have it with, like, the place I'm performing and the date, because then I actually save them all as, like, little mementos for later on. So I always write out a set list. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I rehearse a lot. I used to rehearse in the car, and then I realized it was affecting my driving, because I would be like...
Getting too into it, you're like doing your stand-up. Next thing you know, you're not holding the wheel. You got your hand up like a mic, and you're moving the other one around.
I like...
Working the crowd.
I like miss an exit and be like, oh, that was a great tag, but I just missed my exit, so...
I actually, I do that
not because I'm rehearsing, but I think a lot, and I'm always trying to think of material, and I get lost in thoughts. And that happens to me a lot, where I'll be like driving down the interstate and just thinking about whatever the bit is. The next thing I know, I'm like, oh shit. I was supposed to turn there. And I'll even have GPS going, and I'm like, oh, man, that was a bad fail.
This is a great bombing story. I drove all the way out to Boston for a mic, which is about an hour from me, 45 minutes, more or less. And I showed up really late. I blew a tire.
Oh, no.
In the parking lot of the mic. I went on stage, performed 3 minutes, got very mediocre dog park laughs. Because it was like 4 people in a dog park, and then I ended up being stuck there for the rest of the night.
What's going on in Boston? You're like performing in parking lots and dog parks, and health inspectors shutting stuff down.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna avoid that city, I think. That's funny, though. I like to end on a positive note. So, what do you? Oh, I already asked that question. That's funny. I almost asked the same question. The question I was trying to get to was, what's one of your favorite or best gigs you've done so far?
Yeah, definitely I did a gig in New York last week on Long Island, where I had a bunch of like my college friends come to see me that had never seen my comedy. But I actually won an award. I was in a sorority, and I won the Secret Comedian Award. So it was funny, like, seeing, like, those people who saw me get that award in college now seeing me do an actual, like, stand-up show and, like, realize I actually pursued this. So that was super cool. It was a great crowd, such, like, a warm room. And I got invited back. It was honestly a great night. Yeah.
It's always good when you get invited back. So what's with the Secret Comedian Award? Were you, like, a class clown?
I mean, in college, I would always just say things under my breath. When I was in a sorority, like, I would just say something, and then one person would hear it, and then they would just be like, oh my God, did you guys just hear that? And then, like, I would just, like, but I wasn't even, like, trying to be, like, I would just say things, and then people would just be like, oh my God, that's so funny. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like,
oh, that's funny. Where can people find you?
Lots of places. I have a YouTube channel. It's just my name, Holly Johnston. I have an Instagram account at holly.johnston_. And I have a Twitter at hjohnstoncomedy. Twitter could use some love. I don't get as many likes and retweets as I'd like.
Sometimes that's for the better. I discovered that the other day.
I'm also featured in, I do some writing and some performing on LeBoeuf Comedy channel, which you'll hear more about next episode.
On another episode.
Yeah.
On an upcoming episode.
Yeah, those are pretty, and Facebook is just Holly Johnston.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, thanks again. I had a good time.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitz Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week. And remember, stay safe so you can live to love.